Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for being here today.
He's tougher than Wild.
I think it's an important subject that we're on. I think this subject should be near and dear to all our hearts. I know it's been one of the first times any of us has ever lived through something like this, but we were very fortunate. I think all you know we've been very fortunate. And we're lucky enough in our area here to go through the eye of it. Now, being in the eye, things are a little bit calm for a while. So we can look around pretty good at the end of it. But other areas of the country, they weren't that as fortunate, and they were hit quite hard. Now, when this first came up, of course, it was running to the outside of us a little bit. And it moved in. As it moved in, the eye, fortunately, passed over us. Now, I hope a lot of residents don't think this is what it's like, because it's not. It's entirely much different and much rougher. So I hope today and in the near future, a lot of people will take it more seriously. Hopefully, we'll never have one of these again. It's been a long, long time. Now, I've been around quite a few years, and it's the first time in all my life I've ever seen anything like this. And I'm 80 years old. So, and I don't remember any old timers before that telling me of anything of this nature like this. Now, we had a lot of bad northeasters, we had a lot of bad storms. And northeasters, of course, takes wear and tear on us. But something we have to do, know the difference between a hurricane and a northeaster. There's much difference between a northeast storm and a hurricane. Because you got different type of motions, circular motions, the way it turns, get your counterclockwise motion. With a hurricane, you don't have it with a northeast storm. You just have a shifting of winds. So it's entirely different. Your damage is going to be different. How you handle it's going to be different. Everything about it's going to be different. And I'm certainly glad we had a preparedness thing prior to this. And I think the major state police, everybody have been down, the things that we were doing, and prior to this, that, well, we were ready. And thank God that the things that were done, and the way things were handled within the county. Now, I want to thank in Cape May County here, all of our people that were in charge of the different divisions. And I'm starting from the municipal level, our police officers, all of our people involved, emergency management people, your firemen, your everyday persons who are employed by the cities, who worked and stayed and did things. It was wonderful. It was a very good piece of work. I don't think anywhere in the country has anything been worked out so well. Now, you can't anticipate everything. Things do happen. There can be glitches. We know that. But I would say this, for having gone through this, I think that the personnel and the people of Cape May County did an excellent job. And I want to thank the state police manager. It was excellent. I was at headquarters most of the time when things were happening. And I was very fortunate. I was one of the few that traveled back and forth. And the headquarters to here and back over to my home. But the majority of the people evacuated well. And us being in the summer economy, it's important to get those people out of here. And that's what we were able to do. And so everybody had a part in it, and everybody who participated in it, I say again, an excellent job. And again, I thank you all very much. Now, we all stand, please, for the flag salute, the moment of silence. Flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. And at this time, we're going to start our program because we have a few minutes going, and we're hopeful that we'll make it by noon. We have a lot of excellent people here as speakers, persons with a lot of experience and knowledge. So, thank you all, and if their vice director, then if you'll take it.
Thank you, Freeholder. And I too would like to welcome you to this most important conference. We have a lot of great speakers up here today, a lot of information will be presented. And going back to what transpired in August, I too would like to commend all for an excellent job. The cooperation that we received from the municipalities, up-to-date information we received from our emergency management director and his staff was unbelievable. That's why we were prepared. And in all the years that I've been elected, I never had as much direct contact with a governor and a lieutenant governor and his administration. We were kept in constant contact. We had up-to-date conversations via the telephone regarding what was transpiring, what was happening, and the lines of communications were never better. And that's why I feel that we were prepared. The governor and the staff, along with Cape May County Emergency Management, worked together, and we were able to evacuate many, many people. It was estimated that we had approximately 800,000 people at the time that we asked for an evacuation, and by the time that the storm was headed our way, we were down to a little over 12,000. So that was a great job of evacuating our county. As Freeholder Sheet said, we have many speakers today, so we'll get started. Our first speaker is no stranger to us here in Cape May County. He's our state senator, Dr. Jeff Van Drew. He's going to be speaking on Senate Bill S-264, Coastal Evacuation Recommendations. Senator Van Drew, welcome.
Thank you, Vice Director, and thank you all for being here. And as has been said by the previous speakers, I do want to express my appreciation to the County of Cape May, to the Board of Freeholders, to emergency management, to everyone. I had the good fortune to be there with them. I sent the German Shepherds, my wife and my kids, to various locations. They're older now, so they all went in different directions, but they left. They evacuated, and I stayed in emergency management, as you know, with Freeholder Sheets, and some of the other freeholders obviously were in and out, and the prosecutor and emergency personnel, which was a really good experience for me, because as a legislator, so often as a senator, you legislate, you speak about issues, you hope that you're doing what's right, you hope that you're involved in a process that's beneficial, but it's actually seeing it on the ground. And it was nothing short of amazing to me to see actually all of the issues that we have spoken about, all the policies that need to be implemented during an emergency, how they would be implemented if they would work. I mean, for years, we've all sat up here and spoken about evacuating the County of Cape May, and what would be involved, most especially if there were tourists here and so forth. Would it work? And as many exercises as are done, as many times as you practice, as many times as you go through the numbers, you really don't know something until you actually do it. And I guess the good news is that we did it. We did it virtually without incident, without harm. We did it in a smooth way and in a beneficial way. So that was quite an amazing process. And you know, when you're writing legislation, and the legislation that we're going to talk about a little bit, S-264, you know, we spoke about contraflow. Well, we actually did contraflow. You know, we spoke about sheltering and sheltering for animals and what you would do in that situation, and all those needs and special needs people and how they would be evacuated and what the issues would be relating to that. You know, let me say this. I mean, you know, and I've said it up here before. These are issues of health, safety, and welfare of the people of the state of New Jersey. These are issues that are beyond political party, partisanship, parochialism. These are issues of life and death. This was serious business. I mean, I mostly, when I was in emergency management, and my back and neck still haven't recovered from the air mattress, by the way, prosecutor. Very, not too comfortable, but when I was in, I shut up. I mostly was very quiet and just watched as people who knew what they were doing went about their business. I think we learned a lot from it, and I know that, you know, I'm sure Frank McCall and others are going to speak about that in the future. There certainly were some questions throughout the state, not just in Cape May County, about sheltering issues. Something I've spoken about for years, speak about in this legislation. We need more sheltering, we need higher quality sheltering, we need to plan for it more. In this legislation, S-264, we require that all new schools that are built are adequate to be shelters. I mean, we've spent in this state, not millions, but billions. We've spent billions of dollars in building school buildings, many of which are not shelter ready for a real storm. They should be, in my mind. And I know we're concerned about cost factors, but we also have to be concerned about life and death here. And I think that's something, it's in the bill and we need to keep it in the bill. We've spoken in the bill in the past about what do we do about animals. Now, people come to me often, they say, well, you love your German Shepherds, you love animals, that's great, but it's not really important. We're talking about saving human beings' lives. We absolutely are. So whether you're an animal lover or not is not the issue at all. The issue is that many people are, and many individuals will not leave, most especially seniors, without bringing their pets with them. If the pets are staying, they're staying. Or if the pets don't have a place to go, they're going to stay a whole lot longer than they really should, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to get them out. That endangers them, and it endangers the emergency personnel who have to get them out as well. Working with Cape May County in emergency management, we've also worked with Atlantic, and we're starting to work with Cumberland. There's an organization called Noah's Wish, and I know Frank McCall was one of the first people to jump right into it. Noah's Wish is good news, cost the taxpayers zero. It's an organization, it's a private not-for-profit, and what they do is they train individuals and locate shelters for pets, for people that can't bring them with them. I think we need to do more with it, and we need to expand it. It worked to some degree, and I think there were still some issues with it. In Atlantic County, we had located the Atlantic City Race Course, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of pets up there. And I believe, and I'm sure Mr. Paul will speak more about it later, in Cape May County, the Cape May County Airport, and there were, I think, a few hundred animals there as well. I've heard from some individuals they still didn't know what to do with animals. We encouraged everybody just to take them with them when they left, so I'm sure we can speak about that more. But it's a big issue, it's in the legislation, and let me just back up for a second before I wrap up here. Much of which is in S-264 is implemented and has been done in the county of Cape May, and indeed was done by the state of New Jersey. Through the years, much of this has become part of the process. However, it's important to codify it. It should be in law, and that's the reason that we're still working. The bill itself, S-264, has gone through the entire Senate. It had to go through 2 committees and a floor vote. It did. It is in the Assembly now in committee, and I believe, I cannot promise, but I believe it's always a painful process in the legislature that we're going to get this done before the end of this legislative session. And I'm going to push to do that. I have to push in the Assembly. If we don't, we're going to start all over again because it should be done. Quickly, what the bill requires is, and again, a lot of this was done, thank God, but that nursing homes have an evacuation plan. Ladies and gentlemen, how amazing is it that all the nursing homes in Cape May County were evacuated, and to my knowledge, without incident, including our own Crest Haven. That is a yeoman's task. It's not an easy thing to do with people that are very fragile. We need to make sure that that's the standard for the state of New Jersey, to have an inventory of the resources that are needed. One part of this, thank God, that we didn't know too much, at least in our part of South Jersey, is if it had hit, if it was a direct hit at high tide, if all of it would happen, what would have happened to our most important facilities? Would we have the backup generation that they need? And when they needed help and they needed more generation of electricity or whatever it was they needed, including our power plants, do we have the proper inventory of where it would be and how to get it to them quickly? Thank God we didn't find out. I believe that we do, but that should be mandated and it should be law. The contraflow, we saw the part of it that we did do seemed to work in an acceptable way, and people that are more experts than I am can speak about it. Trailering, this is a question that I've been asked a good deal about, and I just want to clarify. In the first of all, trailering your boat and getting it out of the way is a good thing to do. Nobody is saying that you shouldn't do that. In the legislation it says, and by the way, usually by executive order or regulation or however it's done, a governor or the executive branch will say at a certain point in the storm, you can't do it anymore. When the winds are picking up and the traffic is heavy, you cannot have a boat whipping around and trailering behind you. So there are a lot of folks that, had called me because it's in the law, in the legislation, and because it was also implemented by the governor without it even being in the legislation, and said, what are we supposed to do, just leave our boats here to get destroyed? Absolutely not. Get them out early enough. But once those winds are picking up, and once it's said that you can't trailer anymore, there's a reason for that, because it's going to cause accidents. As smooth as this was, I was on the road on Thursday coming back from the state capitol, and there were, people get a little bit worried when these kinds of events happen. So the gas stations were overfilled, there were some arguments, there were some issues, and on top of that, quite frankly, you don't want to have unwanted accidents from trailering during high winds. But should you get your boats out if you can? Absolutely, but just get them out early enough. Schools, we spoke of sheltering, a plan for animals. Important that we continue the good work that's being done by Noah's Wish. No expense to the taxpayers, particularly good. There's some training that went on already. We had a training session, I guess it was about 6 months ago, where all these volunteers, and they're specifically taught how to deal with all of these issues, were up at the racetrack in Mays Landing. They had a sleepover. They didn't have any amenities. I mean, they really did it the hard, rough way. These are people who are really dedicated. They're not getting paid, by the way, so these are good people. Special needs. I think we still need to look at that more, personally, the special needs issues. We've heard some about that, and again, I think the folks up here that are even more knowledgeable than me can speak to the specifics of this storm, but we did have some concerns and issues with that, and I think we need to do more with that. And then just basically, which worked very well, ensuring that our plans all interlock, that the counties are coordinating together when these types of issues happen. To wrap up, the ironic part of all of it, which is amazing, and that's why I was kidding Jim Emberwine over there, who I've known for many years. I asked him what the winter's going to be like. As good as the weather service is now, sometimes they don't know what tomorrow's going to be like, and that's the part that is amazing in all of this. When we were there, and there's a lot of folks here who can speak to this, and we were there when it was supposed to hit and got up early in the morning, and we were quite frankly relieved we didn't see the devastation that we thought might happen. The ironic part was some of the places, director, vice director, that we sent people to actually got hit harder than where we are. And there are certainly some really painful incidents in parts of my district. The western part of my district, western Cumberland County, was devastated, and western Atlantic County and some other areas too, and they still haven't recovered from both the August storm and then this storm. It really became much more of a freshwater issue than a saltwater issue at the end of the day. I really want to thank you gentlemen for doing this year after year. Cape May County is to be commended for the work that they do. They have been ahead of the curve on this issue when other folks weren't even talking about it. Cape May County cared about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Our next speaker is Director of New Jersey Homeland Security and Preparedness, Charles McKenna. Mr. McKenna, welcome, Director.
Thank you, folks. It's been instructed I have to come down here, so we'll talk at the podium. Good morning, folks, and thanks a lot for having me. I was told that I was going to talk on preparedness and a little bit about 9/11, and I think Irene spoke a lot more about preparedness than I could ever say. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 and the events surrounding that, and our need still to be vigilant with respect to that. And then I am going to steal a little bit of Major McNulty's thunder and talk about Irene and the response to Irene, which I think was very good, but also points up the need for us to work even harder to make sure that we're more prepared the next time. 9/11 was interesting because it came so closely on the heels of Irene, and it was good to know that while the state was mobilized to deal with the immediate problem that we faced due to the aftermath of the hurricane, the state police, the FBI, and the numerous police agencies around the state still had their eye on the terrorism ball. And we didn't let that drop. And I think it points up the need for us to make sure that in the rather complex societies that we live in, that we're always prepared to deal with multiple types of situations at any one time. Certainly, I think that Irene required a mobilization that this state has probably never seen before. But at the same time, we were facing an increased threat stream coming out of the Middle East because of the events leading up to 9/11, when we were told that there may be 3 individuals dispatched to the New York or Washington area to set off a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device around some of the events that went on in this state to commemorate the horrific events of 9/11. And if you think about this state, which more than any state other than New York lost 746 lives that day, and all of the events that went on in New Jersey this weekend, that weekend, it is amazing that we got them all covered, because we started at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning at the Liberty State Park up in Jersey City, where the governor dedicated the 9/11, the state 9/11 memorial. We had about 4,000 family members attend that event, which took the better part of 2 hours. We had thousands of people in and out, all done safely. Then we had all around the state, including Cape May, there were commemorative events that we had to make sure we're all safe. And I think that speaks volumes for the local police departments and the New Jersey State Police, which seemed to be omnipresent that weekend. Then on Sunday, in addition to the events going on in New Jersey, there were a lot of events going on in New York that we jointly covered with the NYPD. And then on Sunday night, there was a New York Jets Dallas Cowboys football game that had over 80,000 people in the Meadowlands, which again created a huge security nightmare for the people who covered that. So it's important for us to make sure that while we deal with the immediate, we also constantly worry about the terrorist threat that exists in this country. And the threat is changing somewhat. The threat is, while it was always Al-Qaeda and large organizations, it has changed somewhat, and we have to worry about homegrown terrorists. We have to worry about people who become radicalized in their basement over the internet. We have to worry about, and I don't mean to make people paranoid about this, and I'm not suggesting that we need to go out and spy on the people who live in our area and our neighbors. But I do think it points up the fact that we need to be situationally aware wherever we go. We have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to be aware when we're in our communities. And if we see something that's out of the ordinary, if we see something that's suspicious, I think it's incumbent upon us as citizens to say something about it, to report it. In New Jersey, we have the ability to report that to a 24-hour hotline that is run by my office, but out of the New Jersey State Police. And you can dial that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The number is 1-866-472-3365. It's 1-866, the number 4-SAFE-NJ. And anonymously you can report suspicious activity. Now a lot of people say, well, it didn't look that bad. I didn't know whether I should call or not. We ask that if you see something suspicious that you err on the side of calling. And that you leave it really up to the professionals to decide whether or not it's the type of suspicious activity that should be run down. And I will tell you that the way it works once that report comes in is the report is first given to the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and they decide whether or not they should expend their resources on it. They make an informed decision, and if they turn it down, if they don't follow it up, it gets followed up by my office at some point. So when you make a report, there is going to be some follow-up on every one of those reports. And my mom always used to tell me it's better to be safe than sorry, and I always used to think my mom was crazy and I should never listen to her, and now I will tell you what my mom always said to me: it is better to be safe than sorry. So that's really where you should be going. I think due to the broadening threat that we face, I think there's a certain responsibility on all of us to make sure that we, as a community, as a county, and as a state, are as protected as we can be, and that's going to require everyone to just report activity that you find suspicious, because no one knows your communities better than you do, and no one knows when something is amiss in your communities better than you do, and no one is in a better position to report that activity other than you. So I would just ask that you do that. With respect to Irene, I'd like to go into it because preparedness for a terrorist attack is much like preparedness for a hurricane or anything else. If an attack were to happen, we have to worry about evacuating people, we have to worry about sheltering people, we have to worry about repopulating those people back into their homes. And in the lead up to 9/11, I was asked by a lot of reporters, where did all that money go? Where did all that 9/11 money go that the federal government doled out? And have we seen any return on our investment? And I believe that Irene showed the return on that investment, because I believe that when that hurricane came, I think as a state and as a county, we were better equipped, we were better trained, we were better exercised, we communicated better, and we were better able to handle the immediate catastrophe that faced us. And a lot of the reasons that we were able to do that was because in a post 9/11 era, we have more money from the federal government to better equip ourselves. We have much more of an awareness to better practice, to better exercise, and to better plan. So that's important. I think I first really want to thank the police, the fire departments, the emergency responders, and the EMS people, because what they did not only in Cape May but around the state was really amazing. They pulled together as one, and when you think that we moved approximately 1.5 million people away from the shore, that we sheltered over 10,000 people, that we fed many more people than that, I think that is a real testament to all of the emergency service workers, the first responders that we have in this state, who once again were willing to put the needs of the public before their own needs, to make sure that this state responded appropriately to the Hurricane Irene threat. I think that it was an incredibly successful response to that weather event. I think that it pointed up certain gaps that we have to worry about. I think that we have to make sure that we are better able to transport people seamlessly. We have to make sure, as the senator said, that our sheltering needs are met, and that includes pets, and that makes sure that we have enough cots, we have enough food, we have enough water to feed everybody and to make people comfortable for extended periods of time. We got lucky to a certain extent with Hurricane Irene because it didn't have quite the ferocity that we thought it may have when it was coming up our shore. And when I woke up that next morning very early, while the hurricane was still going on, but I saw the leaves on the trees, I knew basically that we were going to be okay, because when you have a full-scale Category 1 hurricane hit you straight on, and you look out your window, you're not going to see leaves on the trees. What you are going to see, and thankfully what we didn't see, was power lines just snapped over. And therefore we didn't have to face, although many people were out of power for a long time in the state, we didn't face the sort of power loss for 3, 4, 5, and 6 weeks that we could have faced if we truly had a lot of the power lines snapping. So we have to make sure, and also we didn't have to worry about, because those people who were evacuated, we were able to get back into their homes rather rapidly. In fact, on the shore, we were able to get people back into their homes as early as Sunday night. We didn't have the long-term sheltering problems that we might have faced had the winds ripped the roofs off the houses and in fact destroyed a lot of the houses. So you can shelter people only for so long, and then you have to find interim housing for them. Because we are such an incredibly densely populated state, there's not a lot of places for us to find interim housing. And that is not something, thankfully, that we had to face with this particular storm, but it is something that as we plan for the future, we have to make sure that we have a situation where if people are going to be displaced from their houses for weeks or months, that we have an interim housing plan that is going to be able to basically house them and hopefully house them near where they were displaced from, because we want them to go to jobs. We want them to pay taxes. We want them to work. We want them to do all of the things that they need to do. So interim housing is something that we have to work on. But I don't want to dwell on the negative, because I think we did a lot of things right in this state. And I think the most important thing that we got right was we had strong leadership in the state. We made sure that there was a person at the top who was calling the shots, and we had good communications. I think, again, it was pointed out that the governor held nightly telephone conference calls with all of the mayors and the elected officials all around the state, and he had cabinet members seated around the table so that the local officials could get immediate communication from the people who are actually on